I've already shared this tweet from this man named Sid Harth, but I'm going to do it again because it needs to be revisited. This person named Sid Harth says, I'm deeply questioning my decision to support the Republican Party after witnessing the persistent and dehumanizing attacks directed at me and my community by individuals who, despite hiding behind a veneer of respectability, openly harbor and amplify racist ideologies. I've tried to hold on to the belief that these voices represent a vocal minority and not the broader values of the party. But time and again, I am disheartened as accounts with massive followings, many of them wielding significant influence, parrot unhinged conspiracy theories and perpetuate overtly racist tropes without consequence. This isn't just about isolated comments or fringe behavior. It's about a pattern that reveals an uncomfortable truth about the party's failure to unequivocally reject bigotry. These attacks aren't simply offensive, they are alienating to communities whose values, work ethic, and aspirations align with many conservative principles, yet find themselves consistently vilified. There is no veneer of respectability. The Republican Party is outwardly bigot towards people who are not white, straight, and Christian, and who have some money. So, like, I don't know what kind of blinders many of these Indian MAGA are wearing. It's simply silly. And like Chicano Marine says, racism against Mexicans was okay. Racism against Haitians was okay. Like literally, Trump went on TV and was saying they're eating the cats, they're eating the dogs, talking about Haitians that are in Springfield that are there legally. That's what he said, and that is what many of the GOP ran with. Racism against Puerto Ricans was okay. They had a mouthpiece calling Puerto Rico, the island, a floating piece of garbage. Racism against Black people was okay. I mean, historically, they're racist against Black people. But now that it's directed at you, Indian MAGA, it's a problem. So when Trump said immigrants are poisoning the blood of America, did you think you were exempt? These people are delusional. They really think that MAGA overall like accepts them. They needed their vote. They needed their donation. They do not accept you.
You are so bright and articulate, and I guess I can call you articulate since you're not an American Black. Can't say that about them. That's derogatory. And that was a great opening segment. Lots of things to talk about there. Oh, and I agreed with many things you said during, in fact, probably more than most other candidates when you were running for president. But I still would not have voted for you because you're an Indian. We'll get back to that. And it's directly related to what you were just talking about. You know, the thing about nationalism, you're totally right. It is like, to use the word nationalism, oh, it's Hitler, it's Hitler. And, you know, Hitler had soup. That doesn't mean we shouldn't have soup. Mm-hmm. Hitler loved dogs. That doesn't mean you shouldn't love dogs. So I think we have to move past this. If Hitler did it, it must be bad. There is a core national identity that is the identity of the WASP. And that doesn't mean we can't take anyone else in, a Sri Lankan or a Japanese or an Indian. But the core around which the nation's values are formed is the WASP. We've never had a president who didn't have at least partial English ancestry.
I want to talk a little bit about Vivek Ramaswamy. Back when he was campaigning, when he was in the primary wanting to become president, he definitely was trying to act like he is one of them. He was definitely trying to act like he's one of them, trying to be white adjacent or tangentially white or something. So he was talking with Cuomo. And so the title of this one is Ramaswamy Sparks Furor with Comments on Race. Vivek Ramaswamy has sparked a firestorm of criticism since launching his 2024 presidential campaign for comments that some have called racially charged. Recently, the 38-year entrepreneur faced backlash for comparing Representative Ayanna Pressley, a Black Democrat representing Massachusetts, to modern Grand Wizards of the KKK. He has said that the U.S. education system is a modern ghetto system, that the government pays women in inner cities to be single, and has argued with former CNN anchor Don Lemon on what it's like to live as a Black person in America. Dude was literally spewing vitriol. I think there is a pattern here, but to be honest, I will go one step further and say that this is a cornerstone of his campaign, said Brandon Weathersby, Presidential Communications Director for the American Bridge PAC. Just because you deliver it with a smile, just because it's a little more palatable, doesn't mean it's not going to have a lot of the same negative implications for folks, or literally feeling like there's a target on your back when you go outside or when you go into certain communities, because that rhetoric has been normalized. Ramaswamy, who is Indian American, announced his campaign for the GOP presidential nomination in February, quoting the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. in his announcement video, but much of his rhetoric has echoed that of former President Trump's.
To those of you watching this at home tonight, I'd like to deliver a message that the media doesn't want you to hear from the Republican Party. Our message to Black Americans is this: the media has tried to convince you for decades that Republicans don't care about your communities, but we do. We want for you what we want for every American: safe neighborhoods, clean streets, good jobs, a better life for your children, and a justice system that treats everyone equally, regardless of your skin color and regardless of your political beliefs. Our message to every legal immigrant in this country is this: you're like my parents. You deserve the opportunity to secure a better life for your children in America. But our message to illegal immigrants is also this: we will return you to your country of origin, not because you're all bad people, but because you broke the law. And the United States of America was founded on the rule of law. Our message to millennials, speaking as one myself: yes, it's true. Our government sold us a false bill of goods with the Iraq War and the 2008 financial crisis, loading up our national debt that falls on our generation's shoulders, telling us that if we took out college loans, we'd somehow get a head start on the American dream, when it hasn't worked out that way. But we can't just be cynical about our country, because the United States of America is still the last best hope that we have, and we deserve a better class of politician, one who actually tells us the truth, even if it comes with some mean tweets from time to time. And our message to Gen Z is this: you're going to be the generation that actually saves this country. You want to be a rebel? You want to be a hippie? You want to stick it to the man? Show up on your college campus and try calling yourself a conservative. Say you want to get married, have kids, teach them to believe in God and pledge allegiance to their country. Because you know what? Fear has been infectious in this country, but courage can be contagious too. That too is what it means to be an American.
Then this dude basically said he's never seen a white supremacist. He literally is on video saying that. At a town hall in Pella, Iowa on Friday, 2024 GOP presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy declared, "Our diversity is not our strength," compared a Black congresswoman to the Grand Wizard of the KKK, and compared the existence of white supremacy in the United States to that of unicorns. I'm sure the boogeyman white supremacist exists somewhere in America. I've just never met him. Never seen one, never met one in my life, right? Ramaswamy said at a lunch hosted by the local county's Republican Party. Maybe I'll meet a unicorn sooner, and maybe those exist too. Barely 24 hours later, a white gunman armed with a handgun and an AR-15 adorned with swastikas entered a dollar store in Jacksonville, Florida, and unalived 3 Black people before self-deleting. On Sunday, Ramaswamy defended his insistence that white supremacy was not a significant factor in American politics and instead blamed the media, academia, and politicians for focusing too much on race and creating a racialized culture, right as the last few burning embers of racism were burning out. So it was almost over. Racism was almost gone. He said, I was responding to a question where someone asked me what racism I have experienced in recent years. And I answered honestly, most of that racism has come from the modern left, said Ramaswamy, the son of Indian immigrants, on CNN's State of the Union. The tech entrepreneur pointed to a left-wing commenter who made a pun out of his last name and to years-old comments by progressive Representative Ayanna Pressley, Democrat from Massachusetts, airing her frustrations about Black leaders she viewed as inadequately advocating for the Black community. I acknowledge that all forms of racial animus exist in the United States, including fringe branches, as clearly as what was at the head of this mentally deranged individual responsible for this shooting. But I think there are many forms of mental derangement that cause us to see one another on the basis of our skin color and attributes. Ramaswamy argued using the history of racial discrimination in the U.S. to inform policy was discrimination in its own form, and that a colorblind meritocracy is the only path forward. In both the CNN interview and a separate interview on Meet the Press on Sunday, Ramaswamy blamed the country's mental health crisis as a larger factor contributing to the shooting than racism. On NBC, he deflected questions about the racist manifestos uncovered by law enforcement in the Jacksonville shooting investigation by complaining about the double standard for mass shooter manifestos. And then back in 2023, Meet the Press had a juicy interview with this man. Apparently, when his parents got here and he was born, his parents were not citizens. His mother had not yet taken the citizenship test, and his daddy is not a citizen at all. So he got his citizenship after he was born, and his mother got her citizenship after he was born as well. And his daddy is not a citizen either. So they do all of this talking, yet I don't know. It's like they do these mental gymnastics to where they did it a little bit better than other people. But his daddy, like I said, is not even a citizen at all. The mental gymnastics is amazing.
Some folks have been asking questions, and I just want to be super clear. Did your father also take the citizenship test, and is your father a citizen?
He did not, and that's a choice that he has made for familial reasons, but my mother did. And I think that every immigrant who comes to this country in order to become a full voting citizen has to do the same. And I believe in being consistent about my policies where...
So your father is not a citizen of the United States?
He's not.
Okay. And your mother, when did your mom take the citizenship test? Was it before or after you were born?
After I was born.
After you were born. Okay.
After years of being in this, following the legal process of becoming a naturalized citizen, she followed it through the legal process. And
so you gained citizenship through birthright then?
Well, but you gain citizenship through birthright citizenship in that sense too, right? I mean, every American. So what I want to do is revive a vision of citizenship where every kid who enjoys...
Wait, I'm sorry, just to backtrack. So your father is not a citizen, your mother...
They came to this country legally. They were in this country legally. So my view is any kid who is born in this country of parents who are here legally, that's the scope of where birthright citizenship applies.
The civil war that is going on within MAGA is amazing, and the fight is going to continue. And we're going to see even more fireworks on Friday when the Republicans need to vote for a leader. They need to vote if they're going to keep MAGA Mike Johnson or if they're going to replace them. So this is a crisis that is going to show us, will there be a lot of infighting? Will Republicans get anything done? This is an article from the Daily Beast. MAGA crisis could mean no Trump inauguration on January 20th. The MAGAverse could be on the brink of exploding into an all-encompassing constitutional crisis with Donald Trump's inauguration as possible collateral damage. The incoming Congress is scheduled to start on January 3rd, but following a bruising pre-Christmas battle to keep the government open, a few Republican lawmakers and even President-elect Trump have hinted they may have turned on House Speaker MAGA Mike Johnson. Without a speaker, the House of Representatives could become paralyzed and unable to certify Trump's re-election victory, plunging the Capitol and the country into political chaos. After that, nobody knows what would happen, so how could things play out? According to the U.S. Constitution, each new session of Congress begins at noon on January 3rd. In the House of Representatives, the first order of business for incoming members to choose a speaker who then swears in newly elected representatives. For about 100 years, this step was just a formality, but experts have worried for months that Republicans are so divided they might not choose a speaker in time to count and certify the presidential election results, which by law must happen on January 6th during a joint session of the House and Senate. Lawmakers don't need to finish the certification on that same day, but the process has to wrap up by noon on January 20th when the Constitution says the outgoing president's term ends. The problem is that the incoming House Speaker must receive an overall majority of all the votes cast, not just a majority of the leading party's votes. The incoming House will have 434 members, usually 435, but Representative Matt Gaetz dropped out following allegations of sexual misconduct and his failed nomination to be Attorney General, meaning Johnson needs 218 votes to hold on to his position. But Republicans hold such a slim majority, 219 seats to Democrats 215, that even a few defections would cost Johnson the speakership. Representative Thomas Massie, Republican from Kentucky, has already said he won't vote for Johnson, and several other Republicans remain undecided. Axios reported earlier this week, and Trump's silence on the matter has been deafening. Settling on a new speaker could take weeks, and the January 20th deadline is dangerously close. Political science professor Steve Smith of Arizona State University told Roll Call that nobody has any idea what will happen if the House doesn't elect a speaker by then, because it has never happened. Republicans could elect a temporary speaker whose terms expires on a particular day. If those efforts fail, there would be no one to certify Trump's election victory in time for the inauguration. Republican lawmakers rejected the idea of an acting speaker when Johnson was chosen in October 2023, but a raging Trump, whose inauguration would be at stake, might be enough to install one this time. It's not clear who that would be, though, after last week's government shutdown debacle drove an Elon Musk-sized wedge between Trump and Johnson. With the government funding set to expire at midnight on December 19th, Congress was about to pass a bipartisan continuing resolution bill to keep the government open through March, until the world's richest man began trashing the agreement on his social media platform X. Eventually, Trump demanded Johnson replace the bill with a slimmed-down version that also suspended the debt ceiling, a move he wanted to pin on the outgoing President Joe Biden. After that one went down in flames, with 38 Republicans joining the Democrats to oppose it, a second bipartisan deal avoided a shutdown at the last minute. Johnson told reporters he thought Trump was probably happy with the outcome, but the president-elect was livid his debt ceiling demands weren't met, Politico reported. Johnson is effed, one Republican lawmaker told the Daily Beast on December 19th. If the election isn't certified by January 20th, the Constitution is clear that Biden's term has ended, taking him and Vice President Kamala Harris out of the line of presidential succession. The Speaker of the House would be next in theory, but since that position would be empty too, it would pass to Senate President pro tempore, the majority party's most senior senator. That would be Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa. Speaking of whom, has anyone checked on Grassley lately? The lawmaker turned 91 in September. So that is what's going on. We're going to see what happens come Friday. We'll see if they can get it together in time to elect a speaker. But we saw what went down when McCarthy and the continuing resolution back in his term caused MAGA Mike Johnson to get the speakership. It was a whole mess. They couldn't get it together. They had the MAGA factions versus the MAGA light factions. I don't know. It's going to be a whole mess, but it's going to be interesting to watch. Join the conversation and let me know what you think about this one. Don't forget to like, comment, and share.